Eighth grade, we probably have about 4 parent copies, maybe a 5th one, depending. Many of the 8th grade parent copies are still looking ahead to next year. So when we get to late February, Mr. Drain is the academic vice principal in high school. We'll talk about next year's academic program. We're going to go through all the freshman courses and through sort of how things are different, how things are the same. And then towards the end of April, we'll have a parent copy in which Mr. Brooks, the Vice Principal for Student Affairs, and Mr. Donald, Vice Principal for Mission and Identity, will come and talk about the non-academic programs in the high school. So again, those are sort of more, again, in today's as well, a little more giving you information. We do have a parent coffee in January, which I think is a little bit different format. That's really talking about your son's transitioning from a nice, wonderful pre-adolescence into surly adolescence. And that's more of a sharing experience for parents to sort of understand that, yeah, their sons are not the only ones in the world who are surly adolescents at that point in time. We'll talk about that. That's a sort of fun one. Last year when my son was going through that process, Ms. Domas made me sit with the parents and shoot him and everything, which was fun. So yeah, but that's, again, so we have sort of a mix of things. Sometimes we end up getting another parent copy some point in time in the spring if the topic comes up. And I know there's some all-school ones this year as well, so keep an eye out for those. And then tonight, we have something special going on here tonight. We have a woman from Children's Hospital who's sort of the head of the sleep division there coming in. She's going to talk about, she's an expert on sleep and adolescence and sleep, and she's going to give a talk here tonight at 7 o'clock on that. I've seen sort of the PowerPoint slides from it. It looks fascinating, so if you do have a chance to come in, 7 o'clock on Thursday night, I might be asleep, so that could be a little bit difficult for me at times, but anyways, we'll have that. Today, I'm going to talk about the HSPT, and then towards the end, we'll have plenty of time if you want to ask questions about that, anything to do with the high school. You know, we have our open house on Sunday. Some of you are probably volunteering. Some of your sons are volunteering at the open house on Sunday. Some of you may want to come in and do the high school tour on Sunday. But again, you can also ask us questions. Mr. Rowland, who's our 8th grade guidance counselor, Mr. Rowland has been guidance counselor in high school for the past 6 years. And here, of course, Mrs. Smith back here, and Mrs. Smith has a son who's now a junior, so she can also answer some questions my son, Mr. Rowland, and me. So today, HSPT, high school placement test. That's what we're talking about. Your son's going to take the HSPT in December. So I want to clarify what it is and make sure you answer your questions on it. Let me first say, let's talk a little bit about how we use it. So it's a high school placement test. There are 5 tests in the high school placement test. 2 of them are cognitive tests, and they sort of test how well the boys' brains are wired to learn. So you have a verbal reasoning test and a quantitative reasoning test. And then there are 3 tests that test what he has learned in a sort of very big general sense. There's a reading test, there's reading comprehension, there's a math test, and there is a language test. The language is mostly grammar. Those things of how the English language works. So, and it's you know, like the main standardized test you probably took in your life, the SAT, etc. It's a bubble test. They fill in bubbles, and it'll take all morning. We do it on December 8th, which is a liturgy day. And so we have our guide, the 8th graders don't go to the all-school liturgy in the morning. They do the test, and then we do a special liturgy just for the 8th graders later on in the day. And that's all they do. They don't have classes that day. They take the test, we give them a break. We do liturgy, something else, pretty minor.
But do they have to wear a tie?
We do put them in shirt and tie. We let them take the tie off or loosen the tie during the test. And then we put the tie back on. Great question. Great question. We've debated that for a while on what it's done. So again, it's a bubble test. How do we use it? Well, first off, that name, high school placement test, the HSPT, the placement there, throws everyone off a little bit. Right? It's not for placement into classes next year. Okay, this is not going to impact what classes your son takes next year. For the most part, English, social studies, religion, biology next year are all the same. There's no honors or non-honor track in those. In math and in language, which class he places into, somewhat depends on which class he's in this year, but also how well he does in that class this year. So it's going to be basically a teacher recommendation. Sometimes they do, it depends on the year, a math placement test or language placement test. Those will impact, if he takes math or language placement test, those will impact it. But the HSPT, the big one with the bubbles, that's not going to impact what classes he takes next year. One small caveat to that. There are times in the math department, and usually it's more in the upper level math classes, if a kid is on the board, they're not sure which class, particularly it tends to be more if he's ready for an AP calculus as a junior or sophomore year in the case of some of our kids who are in geometry right now, and he's sort of on the bubble there, they will look at the quantitative score. That's the score that impacts that the most. And because they've got some empirical evidence that, hey, with the stronger quantitative scores, will most likely lead to success. So that's the one place, where it could impact, again, if your son's on the bubble, trying to get an AP calculus instead of pre-calc honors or honors calculus, that may have an impact. That's a pretty small number of students. And again, that's mostly because if he has the higher score, it's a good risk to put him in there. If he doesn't, it's a bad risk, and it's not a good situation for him. All right, so that's getting that part out of the way. What do we learn? So we've got the cognitive test. We see the results of that. We've got the achievement test, the basic test. We might confirm that your son is brilliant and he's achieving at the highest level and everyone's happy. All right? We might confirm he's brilliant, meaning the cognitive tests say that. I'm using that term very loosely and sort of offhand, so please don't mistake that. But we might confirm that based on the cognitive test, he's got great cognitive scores, but he's not achieving at the level based on the basic test that we would expect. And so what do? We ask why. And sometimes that can go, sometimes we find, hey, really high cognitive scores, and the other scores are low. We ask why. The most common answer is he got tired in the middle of the test and basically just decided he was frustrated and just filled in bubbles randomly on those last 3 tests. That's the number one answer. That's the first question asked. Did you work really hard on these tests? And then we ask a couple different ways. Mr. Roland will ask it. And sometimes we try to yes. And then if it's not that he just got tired and frustrated or broke down, we'd ask a little further. Sometimes, and again, we have over the years, it's been very good for some kids. We've seen something that we wouldn't have spotted otherwise, encouraged the parents to get some testing done, and they picked up something where a learning issue that because they figured it out, they were able to help the kid be much more successful and much less frustrated when he went into high school. And I remember one particular kid who ended up, he did fine in 7th and 8th grade, a good student, but not a great student. The scores would suggest that he should have been a great student. When parents took him to get tested, people who did the testing came back, you would never have noticed this. But he has this learning issue. And here's how he can work around that. And he went on to be very successful here, and he graduated from BC this coming year. And again, he had a great career in high school. He was much happier in the high school than he'd been in a room where he just always felt like he wasn't doing as well as he should. So sometimes we pick that up. It's rare, but sometimes we do pick that up, and that's a good thing to know. Sometimes we find, we have a student whose cognitive scores are average, and he's achieving really high. And that's usually an overachiever, and that's a good thing. Everyone wants to have a kid who's working harder than maybe that. But sometimes we can also figure out, okay, is there any way anything we can do to help him out with this? Sometimes that means, hey, here's a guy who's going to get really good grades in high school. But his SAT scores may not be as strong as his grades. Here's some things you might want to do to boost that. You've got 3 years to figure that out, or ACT, which a lot of kids do SAT. We might learn he has a specific weakness in a certain area, and maybe we can help, do some long-term planning with that. And sometimes we just learn, whoa, boy, everybody did poorly on this part of the test, and so maybe we need to rethink our curriculum a little bit. We did that a couple times in the first few years. Overall, we tend to do the best in math. That tends to be our highest score. Language tends to be our lower score. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is we're an all-boys school. So on average, nationally, boys are going to do higher in math than some of the other things. That's just empirical evidence. That's not bias I'm trying to throw out there. That's just something you see. And language scores in this area tend to be a little lower because we're not a part of the country where it's sort of drill and kill grammar. Like much more whole language in Massachusetts in this area, so much more learning grammar through writing and through stuff like that. So those scores in this area wide tend to be a little lower on language things because they compare nationally with places that just hammer the grammar all the time. And then we take trade-offs on that. We understand that. We did, like the first couple of years, we do our grammar program in middle school. Because we thought we don't want to be, we saw some holes in the expectations. So those are some of the things we learned from the test, and some of the things we can do. Couple things you might want to know. There is some, we've had students take this test for decades coming into high school. A student who is applying to BC High from another 8th grade takes this test, like your son took the ISE, and it's a big factor in his admission. It's not a factor in your son's admission because your son's already here. The ISE was a factor in your son's admission. And your son does not reapply for 9th grade. He goes from 8th to 9th just like he would from 7th to 8th. That, if he's successful in 8th grade, he'll go to 9th grade. If he's not successful, we'll have a conversation about figuring out where is the best place for him to be in 9th grade. But just, as you get the scores back, the one thing we've seen over years is students on the composite scores, you get the different scores and there's a composite score. Composite score, we look at the percentile. So, how he ranks nationally, how his score ranked nationally. Students with in the 75th percentile or better nationally historically have done very well in high school. The better they do and that score goes up, the better they've done in high school. Students who are on the opposite end, in the lower percentiles, have when you get below 40%, struggle. Okay. In the middle is the most interesting thing, because in the middle, it's much more going to factor on the non-cognitive. Is your son resilient? Does he have grit? Does he have good study habits? Does he have good support at home? Those things all factor in much more when they're in the middle of how he's going to succeed. So yeah, those are just some statistics I can throw out at you on that. So then we get to, and I will say this, the best predictor of his academic success in the high school is going to be his grades in the Rupe division. Those stack up very well from a Rupe to the high school. If he's got straight A's in a Rupe, he's going to do really well in the high school. If he's straight C's in the Rupe, he's probably going to be heading towards straight C's in the high school. With, of course, it's always outliers, always guys who completely change their lives between 8th and 9th, and maybe it's between 9th and 10th, sometimes between 10th and 11th. There are guys who change. They're no one's stuck in one slot forever. That's just sort of an average thing. Any questions about that? Questions about the HSPT? Mr. Roldan's going to talk a little while about what you can do if you want your sons to be successful on the HSPT. So I do want to talk about merit scholarships, because this question comes up every year. So a merit scholarship is scholarships, money the school provides the student, who takes off tuition, based not at all on financial aid or financial need. This is based on merit. Okay, so a student is very successful. How do we reward that with merit scholarships? The school's been giving merit scholarships a couple of decades now. Most of our competitor schools do the same thing. It was, designed originally as, sort of a recruitment tool. We're trying, applying for ninth grade, I'm trying to get the best ones to come. So how do we do that? How do you assign merit scholarships? So let me be as clear as I can be here. The student needs good grades, and he needs a great score on the HSPT. Okay, and it's not the opposite. It's not great grades and a good score on the HSPT. Good grades are better, and a great score on the HSPT. And the HSPT score is going to be a specific number that they will set. It's usually about 90th percentile on the national percentile for the composite score. Okay, I think it's always about 90th percentile. It could be high. There's only so much money they have for merit scholarships, and some of these kids score in a certain range. If we had a lot more score higher, it's probably they're going to bump the score up a little bit. But it will be a definite score. Now, 90th percentile, probably somewhere around 30% of the 8th grade, give or take a year, are going to get around 90%. Some years we might get up to 40%, 35, 40%. Some years it'll be more like 25%. I think last year we had 37 students score in the 90th percentile or better on the HSPT. The most frustrating thing for me last year, we had 16 students scoring 87%. I mean, 16 students just missed. How many questions that is, I don't know. Maybe 5 questions over the course of the test? I don't know. But I do know we've never had that many come close, that many come close. We had 2 or 3, sort of 87, 88, 89, well, 16 students last year with an 87. That was frustrating to me. But that happens. So I do want to be clear on that. It is going to be frustrating if your student comes back with an 89 and the cutoff was a 9. It's going to be frustrating for him. It's going to be frustrating for you. Hey, some of the merit scholarship awards there, I don't know, maybe they're $1,500 a year, $2,000 a year for 4 years or something like that. I don't know the exact math, it's going to change. I do know there are some that hitting the 99th percentile, which is the best you can do. There are some very significant scholarships for them. So that's, if your son is a good test taker, and you'll know that from the ISE, if your son is a good test taker, hey, he could qualify for a scholarship. And just to give you a range as well, generally speaking, on average, it's not every single student. Usually it's about a 20-point jump from the ISE to the HSPT. So it's different, they're normed different. It's not because we are brilliant in the arithmetic and we just make every kid so much smarter. They are normed differently. And the norming of the HSPT is it's a wider norm that they take. So it's about a 20-point jump. Now, there's some kids, we've seen kids go 65 points. I've seen a kid go from a 37th percentile on the ISE to a 99 on the HSPT. So, and we've seen kids go the opposite way as well. I just sort of say that it's about a 20-point jump on average. Again, it's not every single student that does that 20 points. So, and if your son scores well, you'll be happy. And he gets that letter and he'll be happy. It's a letter that goes up from the admissions office saying congratulations, and he'll be invited to a breakfast for those elite-based students who qualify for the merit scholarship. And it's great. If your son is a great student and not as good a test taker, it could be frustrating. And every year I get, why don't you do it differently? And I think Winston Churchill once said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. And I kind of think that's with the merit scholarship. We looked at other ways, and then we thought, yeah, we set the bar at a 3.80 GPA, and the kid is going to be someone with a 3.79. You know, wherever you set the bar, wherever we set the bar, and I don't set it, someone else over there does it, so don't blame me for any of this. Wherever the bar is set, there'll be a cover. Someone's going to get there, and someone's not. This is the one shot for a merit scholarship. So, you know, again, think about that, it's the one shot. The one thing I do is I look at those students who have very good grades, who don't get a merit scholarship. So their score was lower than the cutoff. And I draw a cutoff too. Where do I cut that line? Somewhere in there, you know, that's around A- average or something like that. And I invite all of those students, about 15 usually around there. I invite them down to my office. And I give them the bad news, good news. But I do it together. And some people have asked about this, but I invite them down to my office and I just say, hey, I got some bad news. The letters are going out. Your score on the HSPT wasn't good. But I say, look around this room. I say, look how many smart kids are in this room. Look how many great students are in this room. And I said, you know, and the likelihood of someone being, you know, good, class valedictorian in 4 years is just as likely to come from this group in here as it is from the group in getting the letters. So I want them to know, hey, it's not a great meeting. No one's happy with me at that meeting. The most important thing I want them to see is that there are other kids that they think are smart who are also in that same group. Because what happens sometimes is those letters go home, and you know, usually a lot of those kids hang out together. And so 3 kids in a group of 5 friends who work hard, study hard, and all do about the same in school, talk and they say, did you get the letter? Did you get the letter? And then this one, what letter? What are you talking about? So I try to get, as best I can, get ahead of it so those kids know, but also so they see, hey, there are other guys who are working hard, they're smart enough. So it's not great, but they will recover. They will survive it. You know, I usually have a couple of kids who come back and want to talk to me about it further, and that's fine. You know, if the son comes home, there's one because he got to write it down, and processing that, and he's processing a little more. So, yes. I don't think there's a set number of scholarships. So there's, in general, it's usually a certain score on the HSPT, and you know, they set that over in admissions and financial aid, and we tended to have somewhere around 40 students each year from our group A qualify. And you know, some years have been 51, I think, the highest number we've had. Some years have been high 30s, but it tends to be somewhere around 40, about 25 to 30% of the class this year. So, yes. Test is in December, so December 8th, we'll take the test. And we'll talk to kids about it ahead of time. We will, a couple of things we do, a great parent suggestion a few years ago. Number one thing kids need if they're going to be successful in the test, is they just need to be familiar with it. And that doesn't mean, you know, 2 hours a day for the next 40 days or whatever. They need to be familiar with it. They need to be familiar with the pacing. They really need a good night's sleep, 2 good nights sleep for 2 days before, 2 nights before. That's the number one thing. But one of the things the parent asked us, we've been asked, do we have an HSPT class here? And we don't offer one. I don't have a faculty member trained to teach the HSPT class. You know, there are places that offer it. Most of your Catholic K-8 schools will offer it because they've got to get those kids into high school, so they're going to offer that. So we don't offer a class. We did, on the parents' recommendation, suggestion a few years ago, start an HSPT club. So in November, as our fall sports are winding down and finishing up, so for basically the month of November, we offer a club, and it's usually twice a week. One day is for the verbal and 1 day for the math. There's some math used to do the math, there's some other people do the verbal. So they give practice tests, they give, kids, sometimes the kids in a group will try to do the problems together so they can talk about them and do some of that. Sometimes they'll do a practice, time test, the 40 minutes or 25 minutes that the test take 30 minutes of time. And then go over the answers with them. Again, what I've heard from parents is it's hard sometimes to get your son to sort of want to do a practice test at home. They said, if you do it, his friends are doing it, they'll go. We will get 40 kids. We've had to open 2 rooms the last few years. So we will get a bunch of kids who will go in and do that. And again, it's November. The sports are done. There's, we need more clubs in November anyway, so it's a good one. I'll turn it over to Mr. Roldan, who can give you some other suggestions or recommendations if you want your son to do this again. We do not play this up with the kids as a high stakes test. All right? It's not going to determine whether they get into high school or not. That's got nothing to do with this. I don't want them nervous. It is a good practice. They're going to be taking a high stakes test in 3 years with the SAT or the ACT or the ACT. This is a good practice for them to do. It's good for them to have to sit through a long exam like this as far as practice. But we don't, I will talk to them. I will similarly talk about the merit scholarship being available. But we don't put pressure on, we don't want to talk about it daily, anything like that. Yes?
Would the teachers not give homework the night before?
Yeah, we won't give homework.
No, I'm just wondering.
No,
If
it's
it's
good.
up to 11,
Yeah.
doing
Well, no,
homework,
we
and
won't
then
give-
having to do
We won't give
homework.
homework the night before, one, because they won't have classes that day, anyway, so we have no place to collect it, but yeah. So we just take that time aside. Great question. Any other questions about the HSPT? Yes.
So the bar that you set, does that also depend on the new people that are applying into 9th grade? Like, that could get raised.
If we had a bumper year where lots and lots of people scored high, it's never been lower than 90. I think 90 is about where it is, but it could be, the been years, I think it's been a little higher. Based on, again, sometimes the national norms have changed a little bit from year to year, so we see a little bit higher one year than another year. So, yeah, good.
Sorry, Emily, along with merit scholarship, is this used to place our sons?
No, yeah, we talked about that. It's not used, it's called placement test, but that's a misnomer. I didn't name the test, they named it, the company that makes it.
Okay.
So it's not going to be used for placing into classes for next year.
So it's truly just for merit for 8th grade students?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Is it, it will be higher than the ISEE in general. Is it more like, when someone to a Catholic school, they take a standardized test, like it's called standardized. Is it more like that type of test?
It's a similar test to the ISE, a similar test to the probably more like the ISE than the Stanford. The norms, so a lot of times you take the Stanford test or you take the CTPs. There's national norms. They often will give you suburban middle school norms, and then there's independent school norms. The ISE often lines up with the independent school norms because who takes the ISE kids who try to go to independent schools. I find the HSPT, and this is very unscientific, but I found it tends to be closer to the suburban middle school norms. I'm not sure why, yes, but I'm not sure why. But it is a smaller group of kids who take that test than a national sample would be. So that's why it tends to line up a little more that way. We used to do the CTPs for a couple of years here, and that's so that we could line up pretty well that way. Yes.
Just have a general high school question. So you said that they're not placed except for math and 9th grade, is that right?
And languages.
And languages. And does that change from 10 through 10 to 7th, or does it pretty much stay that way?
No, it changes all, again, if you're in honors geometry as a freshman, you don't do well in it, you're not going to go to honors.
No, I'm sorry,
algebra.
I meant does it expand beyond math?
Yes, okay, yes, great question. So freshman year, the only opportunities for honors are in math and your languages. If you're in level 2 languages, there's 2 and 2 honors in all 4 languages. In math, For geometry, there's geometry freshman or geometry honors. So if your son's an algebra 1 this year, he can place into either of those two for next year. And then for those kids in geometry honors this year, there's algebra 2 honors next year. Sophomore year, it expands out to social studies has an honors option. English has an honors option that everybody can opt into. It's a separate online version of it. And is there anything else sophomore year that goes honors?
So there's actually.
Oh, and chemistry, biology.
In regard to preparation, I suggest the Kaplan book for it. It's $20. It's the 6th edition. I think there's a 7th edition. Part of it is just understanding the tests. Part of it, as Mr. Henry was saying, was giving your son the time to do it at night, or you can time manage it on a weekend. You know, most students at this point are not used to a time test. The last 6 years I've been talking to students with the SAT, which is a completely different test, it's much longer. But just giving the students the time, so students fall under pressure because they're not used to being exposed to time tests and having a clock and saying 10 minutes left and 5 minutes left, how they react. I think it's important to do that. Another thing you want to be aware of in terms of sleep, 2 days, have breakfast. If he's sick, don't have him come in. There is a makeup date.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But if he's sick, I'd rather not, you know, coming from the high school end and seeing the students, I use that to just so you know the HSPT score, just to kind of elaborate what we use it for as guidance counselors. I will often look at it just to say to myself, okay, how was he tested, right? So did you rush this test? Did you finish the test, right? As Mr. Hammond alluded to, he talked a lot about testing, right? What do you mean testing? What do you mean learning issues, right? If your student is rushing this test and he's not finishing it, or for instance, he doesn't get through the whole test, he's not bubbling, or bubbling the last 15, 14 questions, as I've had students in the past do, there might be something going on there in terms of processing, and he may need some extended time, right? But we don't really know that until he's actually under a testing condition. So these are some of the things we can talk about if it does happen, right, on that end. When it comes to the score itself, I, as a high school counselor, will take that score, I'll look at it, and I'll say to myself, where are his gaps, right? Because this is ultimately, he's going to take an HSPT this year. He's going to take a PSAT in sophomore year, a PSAT in junior year, and some form of SAT-ACT combination. So there are testing from now, there's a break next year, and then it's full-on testing each year after that. So as Mr. Hamlet said, we don't want to pressure the kids too much at this point of their lives, because there's plenty of room for that when they get to high school. Starts when I get them the first day of school, freshman year. But it's important that, you know, we communicate about some of the concerns they had. You want to look at how they test, when you get the results, you know, where are their gaps, and you know, we can certainly talk about that. I'm open to it. But preparation, for the most part, if you buy your son the book, if you spend, you know, one day of the weekend timing him to do it, looking at his answers, there's answer sheets on the back of this. I have copies of testing in terms of sample tests in my office. If you'd like to take one, I make copies of them by all means. But definitely important for you not to be like 2 hours a day, 3 days a week. This is your part-time job for the next month. You know, it's just not going to be a good situation. But if you're looking to have a conversation about this or anything about this particular, how it looks in high school level, I'd be really happy to answer. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
With a book like that, how much, ballpark time that you would recommend the boy put in a week?
So I would say one section per weekend. So you're thinking about 40 minutes a weekend from now until, I guess, the test. So next week and then now until the test. You know, I think it's important that you cover one section per weekend as opposed to doing 2. It's an hour and a half.
Is this one of those tests that you answer all questions, or if you don't get penalized, you still have?
You don't get penalized to skip.
Yeah, you want to fill in,
You want to fill in
all the bubbles.
That's why I mentioned some students will just, like I had a student a few students last year, well, I just followed in the last 14. You're not finished it, this is a problem, what's going on? But this gives the counselor a good sense of how he will test in the future. This is why we want to see this. We want to be able to, because there's no, it's not for admission, it gives me a sense of, okay, how do you really take this? How do you really take it seriously? Any other questions? Sounds are awesome.
I do find just at the bottom, 30 scores in the class. A lot of those are kids that should be higher than they actually score. A lot of our kids who score low just said, I don't have to worry about this test. I'm not getting a scholarship. I'm bored, and I'm just going to make balance. And that's reality. I mean, it is every year. You know, I look at this, go, oh, wow, that's low, and I'm thinking, yeah, he got bored. So just know that too. Like, we do not panic over the low scores. We try to figure out, does this tell us anything? And sometimes it really doesn't tell us much. So just keep that in mind. Hey, you know, I will tell them we really need you to do your best on it, but 2-hour, 3-hour test on a Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, they're not all going to be there for you on. I want to say one thing about just the process of again, your sons do not need to apply to the 9th grade. They're in BCI. You really don't have to worry about anything. You don't need to come to admissions events, although you're certainly welcome to come to any of the high school admissions events. Open house this weekend. They have information nights, one in November, one in December. You're welcome to come to those. Accepted students reception in the spring. We recommend you not come to that because it's really just directed to those kids who just come in. We have some parent coffees dealing with the academics and the non-academic side of things in the spring. What I do want to say is, if your son is thinking of applying to another school, great. Okay, he should not be embarrassed about that. He doesn't need to hide it. No one's going to look at him badly. Our job in the Rupa division is to prepare kids to be successful in high school, not a specific high school. We have guys apply out every year. Some of those guys, they look, and that's great for them to look, and they find a school that's a better fit for them. And other guys look, and they come back and say, no, this is definitely the place I want to be. Either of those scenarios is great for the kid. So please, if your son's applying out, feel free to talk to me, talk to Mr. Roldan. We'll fill out the forms. We get the teachers to fill out the forms. You know, we hope not many apply out because we get tired of filling out the forms. But, you know, I mean, usually I would say it's usually between 5 and 15 students in the year that apply out. Some go, some don't go. Some start the process and never finish. So just, you know, please, if your son is doing that, feel free. He doesn't need to be secretive about it or anything like that. Yes?
Is the test administered in a small group setting? If you have extracted,
Yeah, so we do it in classrooms, so it's about 20 students in each room taking the test. Yeah, not one big room. Good question. Yes?
Do the same scores go to different schools if you want to apply to a different school?
So that's a little bit tricky. We do the test internally. So 2 things. So if he takes it on a Saturday test date, an official test date, he takes it and then he can put any place he wants to send the scores. If he takes it here, the scores just get sent to us. Now we're happy to make a copy and send it to whatever school. And, you know, if it's a variant, or if it's St. John's, well, they really do kids apply St. John's, but if it's a variant, or it's a CM, or Malden Catholic, or Archie's, or something like that, in the past, they've always accepted that. You know, we'll send them the scores. So you can. We used to say, hey, if he wants to apply to another school, you really should take it on the Saturday test date, and that's fine if he does. And then on December 8th, that's a good day for him to go visit a school. But again, we've found over the years, because sometimes kids at the last minute decide to apply to another school, the other schools, the other Catholic schools around will take the scores from us. That's right. If he's applying to an independent school, they probably want to take the SSAT. They probably are not going to take the HSPT. If he's applying, you know, BB&N, Rockford Latin, Milton Academy, or Thayer, or something like that, they're going to be looking for the SSAT. So you're going to need, and again, good for him to practice taking the HSPT, good way to sort of prepare for taking the test. But he's going to need to take that other test because that's what those schools are doing themselves. So I'm going to, Mr. Roldan and I will be here for a while. So please feel free to stay, talk to each other, enjoy a pastry, a cup of coffee, come up and talk to us. Happy to answer questions. I know people are at places to go and I won't hold everyone. So thank you all for coming in this morning, and we'll be around for lunch.